Welcome, everyone. Fred Blake here again with Bill DeWeese for the weekly roundup. So, Bill, how was the week?
$2,100 was my week in voiceover this week. And we started off Monday, had 3 jobs, one for a company called Skoda. I think they were a Scandinavian company. And in all honesty, I do not remember what the project was for. I just made a note of the company, probably an explainer video because I do a lot of that. I did some promos for New Mexico PBS. And also a little corporate type video for a product called Hanson Lift. And I believe it's machinery, heavy duty machinery, if I'm not mistaken.
Got it. So now here, on a completely, now for something completely different, it just made me think about, have you been to an IKEA ever?
Have I been to an IKEA?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, several times.
Yeah. Do you know what, all the IKEAs have restaurants. You know that, right?
Yes, I've eaten at a
Do you know what their special is in their restaurants?
Scandinavian meatballs.
That's right. So I saw the other day on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, this guy who was a doctor, and his first question had to do with IKEA and meatballs. This guy got on cocky as all hell, misses question number 1.
Oh, no. Was that the question?
Having to do with meatballs at IKEA, yeah.
Yeah, Scandinavian meatballs. I heard there was a controversy over those recently. They think there was some
Yes.
food poisoning or something.
Yeah, there was something that there was plastic. Some of the parts from some of the toys were falling in or something. I don't know. But I
Yikes.
thought it was kind of funny. So when you talked about a Swedish company, Skoda, it immediately made me think of IKEA, which made me think of this guy who made a complete arse of himself on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Anyway, now for something completely different, back to the real material. So my question is Tuesday, and then we'll talk a little bit more about your totals.
Yeah, Tuesday, this will give you plenty to talk about. Nada, zero, goose
Oh,
egg,
really?
nothing. Yeah,
When was the last time that happened?
I don't even know. I can't even remember. It will forever be known in Bill Deweese lore as Black Tuesday.
Black Tuesday.
I mean, I kid you not. I mean, that's what I call it now. It was it was a bit frightening, to be honest.
Well, you see, the naysayers would tell you it's all a result of the fiber people taking all your business.
Yeah, well, I think that's a debatable issue. But yeah, no, it's no, nothing came in on Tuesday. So
And so did you spend, how many auditions did you end up doing?
that day, I don't recall more than usual. Yeah, as many as I could.
Right. And so that's the thing that we got to do when nothing's coming in. And again, this is, folks, it's just, I'll give you the golf analogy, which you always like so much. Who was it? Was it Greg Norman or somebody who shot like 85 in a major or something? Sometimes things just go really badly.
Yeah, yeah, and it doesn't take long for things to go sideways sometimes. And it's funny. I just had lunch with 2 of my kids and Vicky. We went over to Subway and grabbed a sandwich, and we were just talking about work and stuff. And she said, she goes, Bill, she goes, how much are you auditioning? She's so funny. She's my accountability partner apparently. And she says, when you audition a lot, you get a lot of work, right? And I said, yeah, I know. The truth is, though, but I mean, you're juggling a lot between, there's basically, we got 2 things going on, voiceover training and voiceovers. And so trying to find the balance and, you kind of rob Peter to pay Paul, but it's all good in the end. But I'm really trying to focus and get more auditions out the door. But the reality is, especially in pay to play, if you really want to win at that game, even if you're really good, you need to be doing about 20 auditions a day. And that I'm just not able to do.
And now, for those of you who aren't yet members, make sure and sign up at DeWeeseMembers.com. But last night, we had someone on the phone from David Gravel from Voices.com who talked to us about the people who are successful on the pay-to-play sites, including yourself. And he did say that many people are doing about 20 auditions a day.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes they start off their day with those 20 auditions before they do anything else. And so, and again, I'm not making excuses or complaining. I'm just saying, those are the realities we all have to deal with. The good news is I've been doing more auditions like over this past week or so than I have recently. I've really made an effort to. And the results are this week I had a lot more activity, people contacting me back, getting quotes on jobs, saying we're interested in you for a job. And so now I'm just waiting for those to come through. So it was actually a very encouraging week in that regard, a lot of activity, but actual jobs that came through, obviously not as much as I would have liked.
Well, the one thing that people listening and watching here would probably want to know is this. So let's just say that you spent all of Tuesday auditioning. You probably did 20, I'll bet. And my question is, and this is, I guess it's a question without a real solid answer, but how long is the sales cycle? How long
Yeah.
on average should people expect if they put in a lot of audition time? And this is why in the other parts of marketing that I've seen, I call it the yo-yo cycle, which is a lot of times people spend all their time trying to get work. When they get the work, they're so busy they can't try and get work, and so it goes up and down and up and down. Would you
Yeah.
say that's kind of similar in voiceover?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's very similar. And in terms of average, it is. I'll just throw a number out that might be more median than average, if that
Okay.
if that makes sense, because
Yeah.
they swing so wildly.
Yep.
I would say 3 to 4 weeks is really what I have to expect. I don't really expect anything for 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, so then, and you do this, and I think the other thing that's very instructive on this Black Tuesday example here is that and I mean, a lot of times, people in the voiceover business, as I understand it, and again, I'm an outsider looking in, I think a lot of people in the voiceover business like it because you're sort of in your own business. But I would suggest that if you decide to work X number of hours per day, if you only have 2 hours of voiceover work and you've decided to work 5 hours a day, 3 hours of that time should be doing some kind of marketing, which would include auditioning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you know, I've started, I'm doing more cold calls right now during this time because, when you're recording jobs, well, you take that time to record the jobs. But when you're doing, like you said, if you set aside 5 hours and 2 is recording, then you darn well be marketing and auditioning on those other hours for sure.
Now, how do you suggest that people, again, people who are relatively new to the game or have this amount of this kind of time, what would you suggest that they set in terms of total amount of time per day? Because people always want to have some kind of a guideline. So,
Yeah.
total amount of time per day doing work, and
Hmm.
again, if you set it, would 5 hours be too much? Would 5 hours be enough? Is that
As a
what
full-time person or a part-time or,
person?
I'm sorry, full?
Full time.
Full time. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I personally, I would try to get at least 8 hours a day in. I mean, that's the way when I was launching this, I treated it, and I worked a lot of evenings and weekends as well. So I worked even more than that. And most of that time was spent emailing prospective clients, calling prospective clients, and doing auditions on pay-to-play sites and finding anybody I could. I mean, I used Google nonstop to try to find prospective clients that I could reach out to in one way or another.
I think a lot of people who are listening or watching, again, many of them are on the pay to play sites, and they will kind of think that any of their downtime should be spent just auditioning. I'm hearing that it should be spent doing that and other things.
Yeah, my belief and my philosophy, my approach has been to be diversified. I don't want to be overly dependent on any one form. That's why I like to cold call. I won't say I like to cold call. It's not like I say, hey, I get to cold call today, but I do it because it works. That's why I believe in emailing and having a diversified portfolio of client types as well as channels through which to market yourself. And pay to play is very important. And some people do rely on that exclusively. The only problem with approach like that is if the cheese moves, if the focus changes and evolves, which it is right now. I mean, it continues to evolve. There may come a time where it's like, oh, wait a second, where'd all the work go?
Yeah. And so now, when you do your cold calls, I would assume, like we've discussed previously here, you're cold calling production companies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And again, that list can be found on Mandy's.com.
Yes. I just go to Mandy, and then you can query the database any way you like. Start with a state, a country, a continent, whatever. It doesn't matter. And or you can just go to Google and just Google the term video production company or commercial agency. And then just pick up your phone and then call and say, I was hoping you could help me out. I'd like to talk to the person in charge of working with voice talent. I mean, it couldn't be simpler. It's a simple process.
Okay. And again, we've talked about this before, but just in case people haven't heard it, so you call up and you say, hi, I'm Bill DeWeese. I'd like to speak to the person who's in charge of hiring your voice talent.
Yes.
They then say either, okay, let me put you in touch with so-and-so. They either give you them directly and they pick up the phone, or you get their voicemail.
Right.
Give me what you do in each of those instances.
Okay, let's say you pick up, hi, yeah, I'm Fred. What can I do for you? I'd say, Fred, hi, I'm Bill DeWeese. I'm a voiceover talent, and I'm simply calling to find out if you're currently accepting voiceover demos.
And
That's my pitch. And either it's a yes or no.
I say, yeah, we're always interested in finding new talent.
Great. How is it best for me to get that demo to you? Would you rather visit my website or me send you a demo?
Got it. Now you get to their voicemail. What do you say?
It's very similar. Hi, this is Bill DeWeese. I'm a voice talent. I was just calling to find out if you're accepting voiceover demos. I would invite you to visit my website, BillDeWeese.com. Then I spell my name. It's got my demos and also my credits. Or if you want to drop me an email, I leave my email and my phone number. Although I do try to make it as brief as possible, and then I just leave it at that, and just move on to the next one.
Okay, so in the interest of in the interest of making this process more efficient, I'm sure that there are people who have tried to do the following, where they've set up some kind of an automated system to contact these people. I'm guessing you don't suggest that because that's a little bit too mechanized and won't work.
Well, it can work. It doesn't work as well. For instance, I've had somebody who's done a lot of emailing for me on my behalf. I'll set up an email account. It's under my name, my message. It's a template, and they would just go through, find the contacts, and email them out. And I've gotten work that way, but it takes hundreds of emails to get. You know what I mean? The ratio of wins is much, much lower than when you make a personal contact with somebody. I'll tell you something I want to do, Fred, and I think you'll find this interesting. I'm thinking about creating an entire program based around cold calling, because I think it's an activity that most people just will not take advantage of because they're intimidated by it.
Well, I think that and other methods of marketing. For example, again, if I had never talked to you before and you presented me with these, the first thing I would say is, oh, Bill, you know what? On Mandy.com, can you get the addresses of all these places as well? And your response is?
No, but you will get their website. So you go to the website, and that's where you do all of your research.
Okay, well then I get the website. Has anyone that you know of or yourself, have you ever tried to send postcards to these people?
I know people who have sent postcards. I don't personally, because I would rather make the phone call if at all possible. And if not, email's cheaper, and I have to send more probably to get the same result, but it doesn't cost me anything but time, and I outsource that to somebody who works on commission.
Do you think it'd be worth testing postcards?
Oh, sure, yeah.
And we could probably get a list without going to Mandy.com. We could probably buy a list, or there's some list available of video production companies. That might be worth the test. And if we do that test, which I suggest we probably do on a limited basis, it might be interesting if we set up a custom URL, which is a custom domain name, to see how many contacts we get, and I guess try and guess what number of those contacts then produce work. What do you think?
Oh, sure, and I think you could take that even further if you wanted to, if you're willing to spend a little more money and maybe do a more highly targeted marketing campaign where you come up with something really creative that does cost a little bit, but definitely will get their attention. I don't know what that could be, a coffee mug and a bag of coffee. You know, it might be something that simple, or it might be something a little more creative.
Got it. Well, okay. So that's a little bit of a good discussion all around what happened on Black Tuesday. On to Wednesday now.
On to Wednesday, I did a little narration for a Chinese client, Navigator Tissue Rodeo. They make tissue paper. Also another Chinese client, a company called Yide. They are a fragrance product manufacturer. I did a little thing for a jacuzzi, because I do all of Jacuzzi's explainer videos.
When are you going to talk to them and tell them about my friend Ken Jacuzzi?
Yeah, I got to do that yet. Everything's email. I don't talk to anybody, and I think that's part of the problem. But anyhow, and I did another explainer video. So that was Wednesday. It was fairly busy.
On Wednesday, one of the things that you mentioned there was the Chinese customers. And for those of you who don't know this, if you aren't aware, we have this program called VO, that's voiceover, VOSuccessFormula.com. And one of the things that oftentimes comes up in the Fiverr group is as it relates to doing work with a lot of overseas clients, including, and I've seen this primarily with the Chinese, which is that if you get a script, and I don't know how this particular script was, sometimes the English isn't quite grammatically correct. And you have always said...
You're being very kind when you say that.
Yes.
Well, usually it's a far cry from being correct. And it's just, in translation, it just loses something.
And you always correct their grammar and read it grammatically correct, right?
No. No. Usually with Chinese scripts, I usually don't because they're so. It's even beyond grammatical. It's just even the way the sentences are structured and organized. Sometimes it's just hard for me to even make sense of. So I literally read it word for word, and then if the customer doesn't like something, they can let me know. But rarely is it ever sent back. Now, on the flip side, like I do a lot of work for Indian customers who do instructional design, a lot of e-learning.
Yep.
And I get a lot of stuff sent back to me there where, and not because of grammatical errors, but what they perceive to be, I say perceive to be, reading errors, because sometimes they'll hear the words that I'm pretty sure I pronounced correctly and articulated well, they were heard differently and sent back to me. And so I have to really over-enunciate the word. And that happens quite frequently. So I'm just wondering if it's the way we hear words and articulate words. I don't know, but it's interesting because each culture kind of has their own thing, and you kind of get used to dealing with it.
Okay, sounds good. So a very big difference between the Indian clients and the Chinese.
Yes, very significant.
Okay, on to Thursday. How was Thursday?
Okay, Thursday I did a infomercial for Kevin Harrington for the Stingray pool net. I did an explainer video for a company called SunGuard Availability Services. I did another direct response thing called for Ring Tool. It's a in-your-pocket tool. I did some on hold for the AAA Travel, internal corporate training on how to bill clients for project work. That was Thursday.
Okay, and what about Friday?
Today, Arctis Modes was the client. It's a security scanning software program where they can somehow scan, they can sit alongside the road with this technology and scan cars as they drive by to see if they have explosives and stuff like that. It sounds fascinating.
Wow.
So I did that. It was like an explanation of the product. And the only other thing is I began work today on I'm recording a textbook,
Wow.
a sociology textbook. It's 400-something pages.
Oh my God, what is it on?
Urbanization.
Oh my God. So now, how or why did you accept that work?
Well, yeah, a guy contacted me.
Okay.
And he outsources a lot of textbook work. He's like a middleman. He's a production company. And he contacted me, like my demo, and asked me if I consider doing it. And I said, well, I'll be honest with you. I haven't done audiobooks for a while just because they're not as profitable as some other things. Now, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, Bill, you really haven't made as much money as you would like recently.
Right.
So I had a much more open mind, and that's probably the bottom line why I took the job. But he convinced me that he said, these things are middle of the road. They're not difficult or complicated. And he said, with pronunciations, you may need to look up a few things, but most things you can just take your best guess. Not a problem. So I thought, why not?
So what rate did you quote him, and what rate did he accept?
Well, he quoted me a rate because what happens is that he gets a rate for the client says, I got this for you, and then he turns around and tells his talent what he can give him for the project. And I don't know what his take is on it, in all honesty, and I didn't ask. But the book will pay me $1,750. And so,
how long do you think it'll take you to do it?
I'm not quite sure yet. That's really, this is for me is a pilot project, an experiment. I want to see how it goes, because if this is something I can just do at night, I mean, he doesn't care when I do it, but he gives me a 4-week timeline to finish this book, which is plenty of time. But if I can just kind of work on it a little bit every day and add $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to my bottom line every month, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Unless I'm just so booked with better paying gigs that I can't, which obviously right now is not the case. But again, it's just a matter of balancing responsibilities and stuff like that. But anyhow, so I started. It's not. I finished the first chapter today. It's not complicated. It was actually kind of enjoyable. It's written more at a probably high school level.
Got it. And is this so? First chapter was how many pages?
21.
21 pages.
21 or 22, and it's got 15 chapters.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Well, I mean, anything other than what we've discussed earlier as it relates to overall thoughts, feelings, ideas about this week, given what has happened?
Well, I saw a quote yesterday, and I It was by somebody famous, and I can't remember who it was, but they said that the biggest component of success in business is mental toughness. And that was a good reminder for me, because really it is. When it's on you, when it's all on you, when you're the person responsible, you can't look to anybody else. You don't have an employer. You are your own employer. You've got to be mentally tough to withstand the highs and the lows, and to stay cool enough and objective enough that you can strategize and think your way through these things without. You have to be able to back up and look at big pictures and not freak out and knee-jerk react to every little thing that goes on.
Well, there you have it. A lot of good information. Thanks for your time this week. And again, folks, we'll see you next week. As always, Fred Gleek with Bill DeWeese.
Thanks, Fred.